here in this chapter sign of the roots using S and P. And I wrote here without calculating the roots. يعني I will give you an equation. I will tell you, study the sign of the roots. If the two roots are positive, if the two roots are negative, if one is negative, one is positive, and when one is negative, one is positive, which one is bigger comparing the absolute value. So you are not allowed to calculate the roots. And later you're gonna have equations with parameters. So how are we gonna do to do it, to do those things? So step by step, the step that you need to follow all the time, you do delta first, then you study the sign. يعني I do delta, I study the sign of delta, I study the sign of P, I study the sign of S. I wrote here study the sign. So the easiest case when delta is negative. خلاص, when delta is negative, no real roots, and I don't have anything to talk about the roots. Finish, there is no roots. B, when delta is 0, it's not hard here. We have a double root, okay? Though the roots are equal, and they could be or both positive or both negative. The product cannot help me to know the sign. Why? Because all the time the product will be positive. If both are negative, minus times minus plus. And if both are positive, plus times plus plus. So it will not help me to see if the roots are both positive or both negative. So who will give me the sign of the roots here? S. So to do S, I use the formula minus B over A. So if S is positive, it means the two roots are positive. It means x1 and x2 positive. If S is negative, it means x1 and x2 both are negative. Yani, for example, I'm gonna give you a small example here. If I had double root, if I had x1 is equal to x2 is equal minus 1, okay? If you add minus 1, it's minus 2 negative. It means the two are negative. And if it was, for example, 2, the roots 2. 2 plus 2 gives me 4. Both are positive. But the multiplication product will not help me to know the sign. I know minus 1 times minus 1 is positive. 2 times 2 is positive. Now, the hardest case, it's when delta is positive. Here I have two real roots. And here I have a big part to study. Don't be scared from what you see now. I'm going to explain everything. So all the time we start by, when we do delta, and I had delta positive, I will study the sign of P and study the sign of S. P, I use the formula C over A و S minus B over A. إذا if P is positive, يعني if I multiply the two roots and my product is positive, it means same sign. يعني the two roots, they have the same sign. هذه SI, يعني the roots have the same sign. يعني x1 and x2, they have the same sign. يعني or they are both positive or they are both negative. Who will now help me to know if they are both positive or both negative? S. If S is positive, it means both are positive. And you can translate, instead of writing both positive, you can write like this. 0, x1, x2. You're going to tell me, Miss, you wrote x1 before x2. It's the same. But I mean that both are bigger than 0. هيدي الإيكويشن هون, this inequality. It means both are bigger than 0 and both are positive. If S is negative, it means both are negative. And I can translate, instead of writing both negative, x1, then both are less than 0. Hello, Miss, you can write both negative, both positive. I don't care. It's right. Okay? You are free to write it like this. Okay? Now, if P is negative, here I'm sure that if the product, and if I multiply the root and I got negative sign, it means that one is positive, one is negative. So they have opposite sign. The roots, يعني x1 and x2 has opposite signs. How I can translate this sentence opposite sign? And I write 1 less than 0, 1 bigger than 0. Now the sum will help me to see which one is bigger comparing the absolute values. I'll take one example. Okay, I'm gonna give you an example. If I had one of the roots 2, okay, and the other one is minus 1, okay? So there is one negative, one positive. If I add, my answer is positive. What does it mean? It means the positive one is bigger than the negative one comparing the absolute value. Yeah, he كتبت x2 bigger than x1 absolute value. And I took here that x1 is the smaller one. Now, if the sum is negative, يعني I have this case, minus 2, 1. Add those two. What is my answer? Minus 1. It means the negative one, and I name it here x1, and I put it less than 0. Absolute value, less absolute value, are comparing the absolute value, is bigger than x2. But when S is 0, when the sum is 0, it means they are opposite. X1 is equal minus x2. They are opposite. Now, case 3, if the product is equal to 0, so I can have the product of the roots positive, the product negative, and the product equal to 0. When the product is equal to 0, so here I'm sure that one of the roots is 0. Then I'm gonna see what is the other root, positive or negative. So the sum will give me this. So if s is positive, it means one of the roots is 0, the other one is positive. For example, I can have the roots 0, 1. If I multiply, they are 0, but the other one is positive and s is positive. Here, for example, I have 0 minus 3. One is 0, but the other one is negative because the sum is negative. So I'm gonna little bit do a small summary. So all the time I do delta PS. When delta is negative, it's very easy. No roots, I will not do anything. If delta is equal to 0, I have double root. In this case, I know that they have the same sign, the double root. They could be or both positive or both negative. Who will decide S? So I'll just study S in this case. But when delta is positive, I need to do P and S. I do P first. If P is positive, I know that same sign, that I go to S to see which sign. If P is negative, I know that opposite sign here. I need to go to S to see which one is bigger comparing their absolute value. And if P is equal to 0, I'm sure that one is 0, the other one to identify its sign, I should see S. Is S positive because the other one is positive? If S negative, the other one is negative. We'll do some application, not too much. So this is one example. They said discuss the existence of the roots, then study their sign. Okay? So I'm not allowed to find the roots here. But I'm a delta PS. So I have A1, B minus 4, C minus 4. If I do delta here, delta is 44. Delta positive, it means I have two roots. Now let's see P. P is C over A. C over A, it's minus 7. It means the product is negative. It means there is one root positive, one root negative. And it means I have x1, 0, x2, and one is negative, one is positive. Then I will do S. S is positive. It means I'm sure that the positive one is bigger comparing the absolute value with the negative one. So x2 bigger than x1. I'll go to another example. It will not be that much easier and simple. Also, I need to do delta here. Delta is positive. Okay, and then I start P. P is positive. It means the two roots, they have the same sign. Or they are plus times plus or minus times minus. So who would decide if the roots are positive or negative? S. I do minus B over A. S is positive because I'm sure that both are positive. So you can no need to write both wholly. Both positive or a 0, x1, x2. Or you write both are positive or you write this one. Any one you want. Okay? Here, let's make it a little bit harder. Here there is a parameter. يعني هون I don't have an exact value for that. I need to study delta first. Okay? So 2x squared minus 4x plus m. The hardest example, we're going to do it together. Okay? I have a 2b minus 4. I did delta prime. See, I told you we need to delta prime in this chapter. C is m. When I do delta prime, 4 minus 2m. So I don't know if delta is positive or negative. So first, I need to study the sign of delta prime. So I know I solve it equal to 0. And then I do the table of sign of delta prime. You see it? Delta prime, I have for 2, 0. Yani here I will not have, here I will have double root. Here I will have double root. Bigger than 2, negative. So if m is bigger than 2, I will not have roots. And when m is less than 2, it's positive, so I will have two roots. So we're going to see it later. I'm going to translate it all in one table. So I need to do P and S first. P is m over 2. If I do P is C over 8, gives me m over 2. Also, I need to study its sign. Okay? So if we study the sign, I have numerator equal to 0. So P is negative is m less than 0. P is positive for m bigger than 0. S here is 2, it's given, minus B over A, it's 2, it's positive. So now I need to make a big table here like this. I translate it all. How are we going to translate? I will go back. You need to look at the value that we have to put in the table. I have the 2 for delta, okay? And I have the 0 for P. I will put it in order. Look here. I have it m minus infinity 0, 2, plus 1. I will put delta PS. عطول هيك delta PS. Now, delta we said, if it's bigger than 2m, negative. Less than 2, positive. Those are positive and equal 0. P, I will go to the table of P. I'm translating here P. P, I have it 0 for 0. Bigger than 0, positive. Less than 0, negative. So I'm going to write it bigger than 0 here. Everything bigger, positive. Less, negative here, 0. And S is also time positive. And I will start to read from up till down. So delta positive here, I will start with the easiest one. You see delta negative, so directly here I don't have roots, so no real roots. So I will not go back to this part here. Now, delta is positive, what does mean? You start to write 2 real roots. I will continue. P is negative, so opposite sign. So the roots that are opposite sign. So how can I translate it? I can write x1 less than x2. So the roots they have opposite sign. X1 less than x2. Then S is positive. It means the positive number is bigger than the negative number comparing the absolute value. So I write x2 bigger than x1 comparing the absolute value. Okay? I will come to this one now. Delta here, still here, it's positive. Okay, so two real roots. 2RR, you write like this. Product is 0, it means x1 is 0. There is 1, 0. And the sum is positive here in this area. It means the second one, x2, is positive. That's it. I'm gonna repeat. هلا for this line هون بعدنا دلتا positive لأن for m0 دلتا positive. Delta positive يعني two real roots. P0 يعني there is one of the roots 0. S positive, it means the second one is positive. Now I go here. Delta is positive, delta prime is the same. So I have two real roots, 2RR. P is positive, so I have the same sign. S positive يعني they are both positive. I can write both are positive like this. Now here, for M2 delta is 0, so I have here, I write double root. I just need to see what is the root of, what is the sign of the roots, positive or negative. I said P will not give me the sign when they are double and they are the same. So I know that they have the same sign. So S is positive, it means both are positive. Now we're gonna do more application together, harder than this one. I just want you to understand till here. Okay, you're gonna see there is another example. It's much more hard. We're gonna do it together. So again, I'm gonna read the table. Delta positive يعني two real roots. P negative يعني they have opposite sign. هيدي الترانسيشن تبع opposite sign. Sum is positive. It means the big one, the positive يعني the positive is bigger than the negative comparing. يعني كأنه عم بعمل أنا 1 is minus 2, 1 is 2. If you add positive, the answer. So the positive 2 will be bigger than 1 as absolute value. Here I have delta positive, product 0 يعني it means one is 0, some positive يعني the other one is positive. Delta positive two real roots. P positive they have the same sign. S positive يعني both are positive. Delta 0 I have double root. P will not help me here, I have the same sign, but S is positive and it means